Hello everyone, welcome to this live session by Simplilearn. In our previous session, we looked at some of the important Python programming questions for data scientists. Today, we will learn some of the crucial SQL interview questions for data scientists. Let's wait for a few seconds for people to join in. Also, if you haven't subscribed to our channel yet, make sure to subscribe to it now and stay updated with all the latest trending technologies. Now, if you want to get the SQL script file that we are going to use in this demo, then please put your email IDs in the chat section. Our team will send the SQL file via email. SQL is a widely used language for querying data from databases. It allows you to store, retrieve, manipulate and update data present in the form of rows and columns. Data scientists often work with structured data that is stored in MySQL databases, Microsoft SQL servers, Oracle databases, or even NoSQL databases such as MongoDB. Today, we will look at a variety of SQL questions. We'll be using the MySQL database for our demo. Throughout the video, we'll be using MySQL Workbench and the MySQL command line to solve the SQL queries. Let me show you the database that we will be using for this demo and the tables we are going to use. Okay, so here I am on my SQL Workbench and below you can see I have a local instance created. I'll just click on it. Now it's asking me to enter the password. I'll give my password and hit OK. Now this will take me to the SQL editor. Now this is the SQL Workbench. So let me first create a new SQL query file. Alright. So first and foremost, let me show you the databases we have. For that, I'll use the command show databases. If I hit tab, it will autocomplete. I'll give a semicolon and hit Control Enter to run this. There you go. Here you can see the list of databases that we already have, and from the list of databases we are going to use the SQL_IQ database. So to use this database, I'll write the command use SQL_IQ. I'll give a semicolon. I'll select this and I'll click on this execute button. If I run this, you can see now I'm using SQL_IQ database. Now if you want to see all the tables present in SQL_IQ database, we'll use the following command. So I'll write show tables. Now this will list all the tables present inside SQL_IQ database. If I run it, you can see here it has executed successfully and it has given us 7 rows, which means we have a total of 7 tables in this database. You can see there's an author table, there's a table called books, we have customers, email, employee, players and weather table. So all these tables we are going to use in the course of this video. Now if you want to have a look at the data present in one of the tables, you can just use the select statement. So I'll write select star from, let's say I want to see the data present inside the employee table, so I'll write employee. So this is my table name. I give a semicolon. If I select this, hit the execute button, there you go. It shows me that it has returned 6 rows, and these are the column names. We have the name of the employee, the age of the employee, we have the employee's salary and the employee ID. So there are total 6 employees in the table. Alright. Now I can do the same operations on my SQL command line as well. Now let me open the command line first. Okay, so this is the MySQL command line client. It is asking me to enter the password, so I'll give my password first. Alright, now here you can see I have come inside MySQL. Now the operations that we performed on the MySQL Workbench, the same operations can be performed on the command line as well. So I'll write use SQL underscore IQ. I'll hit enter. You can see the message, it says database changed. Now if you want to display the tables present inside this database, I can use show tables command. I have to give a semicolon and hit enter. There you go. You can see the list of tables we have inside the database. Now if you want to have a look at the content of one of the tables, I can just write select star from, let's say, players. If I give a semicolon, hit enter, you can see the rows and columns in the dataset. Alright. And with that, let's move on to our first question on SQL. Okay. So our question is, what is the difference between where and having clause in SQL? So where clause is used to filter the records based on the specified condition, while the having clause is used to filter the records from groups based on specified conditions. You need not worry, we'll do the demo for where and having clause using the employee table. So where clause cannot have aggregate functions such as count, sum, min or maximum functions. Having clause can operate on aggregate functions. Now where clause is implemented on rows, while having clause is implemented on columns. Now let me show you an example of how a where clause is different from an having clause. So I'll take you to my MySQL workbench. Alright, so we are on the SQL workbench. So suppose I want to get the records of the employees whose age is greater than 30. For this, I can use a where clause. So since I want to get the employees whose age is greater than 30, I'll use a where clause. I'll write my SQL query as select star from employee where I'll write age is greater than 30. If I give a semicolon and run this, it will return all the employees whose age is greater than 30. You can see 36, 36 and 35. These are the employees whose age is greater than 30. Now I have intentionally kept some duplicate rows because we are going to use this in our next questions. Again, I can also do the same task using the having clause. So let me just copy this query. I'll paste it here. Now instead of where, I'll write having. So you will see that even this query will return the same result. If I run it, you can see it gives me the same result. Now let's say I want to find all the records where the count of age for all the employees is greater than 1. In this case, I can't use a where clause. It will throw me an error since where clause cannot be used with aggregate functions. So let's try using an aggregate function in the where clause. So I'll write select star from employee where count of age is greater than 1. So the idea is to find all the records where the count of age for all the employees is greater than 1. So if I run this SQL query, you can see it has given me an error. It says invalid use of group function. Now instead, we need to use a having clause along with the group by clause to solve the problem. So I'll group all the age values and then find the count of each age value. So let me just paste this, and here I'll edit my SQL query. Instead of where, I'll write having, and just after the table name I'll use the group by clause. So I'll write group by age. Now let's run it. Alright, you can see our SQL query has returned only those employees whose age occurs more than once. Now let me just verify this. If I run my employee table, you can see Angela's age, that is 36, has been repeated twice. You can see Angela here as well, and similarly we have Mike also repeated twice. Alright. Now let's see the second question. Now this is a multiple choice question where you need to answer the correct SQL query based on the question. So the question is, the correct SQL query to select all the records of employees with ARI in their names is. So we have a list of 4 options given, and out of that you need to find the correct option. Now the answer to this question is this. So if you write select star from the table name, which is employee here, where name like, then if you give this condition, it will return all the records where employees have ARI in their names. Now like is an operator in SQL that is used to search a specified pattern. So here our pattern is we want all those employees who have ARI in their names. The first percentage means that the name can have any number of letters in the beginning, followed by ARI in the middle, and the last percentage means the name can have any number of letters in the end. So let's do this on our MySQL workbench. Let me first display all the employees in the table. So I'll write select star from employee. I'll run this. If you see my table, I have one employee who has ARI in its name, and that person is Karin. I now want to get this particular record. So what I can do is I'll write a select query, select star from employee where name, then I'll use the like operator where name like, within double quotes I'll give percentage ARI, again a percentage, close the double quotes and give a semicolon. If I run this, you can see my SQL query will return only Karin. Now let's do one more example. Suppose I want to find the employee whose name starts with D. So the way to do is something similar to what we saw just now. So here in my condition, I'll just replace this with D. This means the name should start with D, and after that it can contain any number of letters. Now let's run it. There you go. So our table had one employee called Danny whose name started with D. Now moving to our third question. So the question is, we want to write a query to find the players with the least number of goals. So there are 2 methods to do it. One where you can use a subquery, and the other method to use the limit operator. So let me show you both the methods. First, let me go ahead and display all the tables present in my database, that is SQL or SQL_IQ. Alright, if I scroll down, you can see we have a table called players. So I'm going to use the players table to find the player with the least number of goals. So let me show you the first method, that is by using a subquery. So I'll write select star from my table name, which is players, where goals equal to, and in this I'll write my subquery using brackets. So I'll select minimum goals from the table that is players. I'll close the bracket and then I'll give a semicolon. Now let me go ahead and run this. You can see Matt was the player from Scotland who scored the least number of goals, that is 3. Now let's break it down. So what we did was, first my SQL query found out what was the minimum goal scored by a player. So if I run this, you will see it will return me 3. So 3 was the least number of goals scored by one of the players. Now in my outer query, what SQL did was it searched for those goals where the value was equal to 3. So we wrote select star from players where goals equal to 3. Hence, if I run this, you will find the player who scored only 3 goals, and that player is Matt. Alright. Now the other way to do is using the limit operator. So this is more simpler than the previous method. I can write select star from players, order by goals. Now let me first run this SQL statement. If I run this, you can see we have ordered this in ascending order. So the person who has scored the least number of goals appears at the top, and the person with the player with the highest number of goals appears at the bottom. And from this table I only want the first row, and for that I can use the limit operator. So if I write limit 1, it will display only the first row. If I run it, you can see it shows me only the record for Matt. Moving ahead, now let's see the fourth question in our list. The question is, write the SQL query to find the player with the second highest number of goals. Now again, there are two methods to do it. One is by using limit and offset, and the other method is to use a subquery. So let's see both the methods. I'll first write my SQL query using limit and offset. So my query will be select star from players, order by goals, descending. Let me just run this. Alright, so here you can see my table has been ordered in descending order of goals. So Anthony has scored the most number of goals, then comes Daniel, followed by Sam, and at the end we have Matt, who scored the least number of goals. Now out of this, I want the player who scored the second highest number of goals, which is Daniel. So I want my SQL query to return this row that has player ID 103, name is Daniel, country is England, and goals is 7. For that, MySQL has two features. So I can use limit 1 followed by offset 1. So what this query does is, it will offset one row, that is, it is going to offset the first row, or it is going to skip the first row and then print only the second row, because I have set my limit to 1. So let me just run it. You will see we get the desired result. The player name is Daniel and the number of goals scored is 7. Now the other method to do is using a subquery. Now let me write my subquery. First I'll write my outer query, which is select star from, and here I'll write my subquery select star from players, order by my column name, which is goals, in descending order. Here I'll limit it to 2. Then I'll give my alias name as T. Then I'll use order by goals limit 1. Let me just run it first. If I run this, you see here I get the same result. Now let's first break it down. I'm going to run this subquery first. So here I have select star from players, order by goals, descending, and limit is 2. Let me just run it. So the selected SQL query returns the first two rows ordered by goals, and if you see here clearly, we have again ordered the value returned in ascending order, which means from this table, if I order this table in ascending order, Daniel should appear first, and out of that I am limiting my result to 1, so it will print only Daniel. If I run this again, you can see I have the desired output. Now let's check the fifth question in our list. Given the below email table, Write a SQL query to find the distinct domain names from the email column. So if you consider this as my email table, the domain names are gmail.com, yahoo.in, and we have hotmail.com. These are the distinct domain names. Now to solve this task, again we have two methods. Either you can use the substring_index function, or you can use the substring function. Now the substring_index function returns a substring of a given string before a specified number of delimiters. So let me first use the first method. Okay, so here on my SQL workbench, I'll write select. I'll use the keyword that is distinct. Then I'll use my function which is substring_index. Here substring_index will take three parameters. The first is the original column name, which is email, followed by the delimiter I'm looking for, that is @. So I'll put @ with single quotes since it is a text or a character, and then I'll give the number of times to search for the delimiter. Here it is going to be -1. So you can either give a positive value or a negative value. If it is a positive number, then this function will return all to the left of the delimiter. If it is a negative number, the function returns all to the right of the delimiter. Alright. And then I'll give an alias name as, say, domain name from my table, that is email. If I run this, you can see I have the list of all unique domain names or distinct domain names that we saw in our table. This is one of the ways. The other way is to use the substring function. Now the substring function extracts a substring from a string starting at any position. So let me write my SQL query. I'll write select distinct. I'll then give my function as substring. Here substring will take in two parameters. The first parameter is the column name, which is email ID here. So I'll write email. I'll give a comma. Next, I want to find my delimiter. So for that, I'm going to use another function called locate. And here I want to locate the index position of @. So I want to give my delimiter as @ followed by the column name, which is email. And then I want to fetch everything after the delimiter, and for that I'm giving +1. Again, let me give a domain name as the alias name from email. If I run this, you will see we'll get all the unique domain names: Gmail, yahoo.in, and hotmail.com. So these were the two ways to solve the same problem. Now moving ahead, let's look at our sixth question. So our question is, write the SQL query to find duplicate records from a table without using a temporary table. Now, one of the other variants of this question is to delete all the duplicate records from a table without using a temporary table. Now to solve such queries, you can use the group by and the having clause. Let's look at how to do it. So here on my SQL workbench, I'll write my select query as select star, and then I want to count all the duplicate values. Let me give it an alias name as frequency from my table name, which is employee here, and then I want to group by name having count star greater than 1. Let me just run it. Alright, you can see it has returned me two rows. The name is Angela and Mike, and the frequency is 2. Let me just verify this to see all the repeated records that were present in my employee table. So I'll write select star from employee. If I run this and scroll down here, you can see Angela is present here as well as at the bottom. Similarly, we have Mike present twice in the table, and hence our SQL query returned only Angela and Mike because they were repeated twice. You can see the frequency here. So let's now look at our 7th question. Given the below employee table, I want to write a query to find all the even and odd records from the table. So as you can see, there are two ways to do it. One is to use a subquery, and another you can use the mod function. So let me show you both the ways. Alright, so let me run this SQL query to see all the values present in the employee table. So if you see, the last column, which is the employee ID column, has all the employee IDs as unique values. So I'm going to use this in my where condition. So to find out all the even records, I'll write my SQL query something like this. I'll write select star from employee, which is my table name, where employee ID, then I'm going to give my in operator, and inside the in operator I'm going to write my subquery, which is select employee ID from employee, where employee ID %2 is equal to 0. This means wherever my employee ID is divisible by 2, it will return only those records. So let me just run it. There you go. So here we have easily fetched only the even records from the table. Similarly, if you want to get only the odd records from the table, you can use the mod function also. So I'll write select star from employee, where here I'm using the mod function, mod empid, comma 2 is not equal to 0. So I'll use the exclamation mark is equal to 0. So if I run this, it will return only the odd employee IDs. You can see it here. So those were the two ways in which you can fetch the even and odd records from the table. Now let's see our 8th question. So here is the question. Below is the customer table. Write a query to get the first purchase of each customer. Now if you look at the table, there are 3 customer IDs, 101, 102 and 103. Now customer 101 made its first purchase on 2nd October 2018, which is this one, and customer 102 made its first purchase on 5th of October 2018. And since we have just one record for customer ID 103, so this is going to be his or her first purchase. So I want to return 101 phone, 102 tablet and 103 books. To do this, we are going to use an inner join. If you can see, I have used an inner join and I have also used a subquery. Let's write this query on my SQL workbench. Okay, so this query is going to be a little complicated. If you have any questions, then please put it in the chat section. We'll be happy to help you. So I'll start with select. I'm going to take an alias name as t dot. I'll write cust underscore id, comma t dot purchased at, comma the next field I'm going to select is t dot item from customers as t. Next I'm going to write my inner join, and inside the inner join I'll write my subquery, which is going to be select customer ID, comma I'm going to take the minimum value from the purchased at column, which is my date column. Close this. I'll give another alias as min underscore purchased underscore at from my table name is customers. Then I'm going to group it by 1. Here 1 means the first column that you have put in the select statement, which is customer ID. So I'm grouping by customer ID. I close the bracket, and everything I'm going to give an alias name as T1. Now I'm going to join on T dot customer ID is equal to T1 dot customer ID, and my next condition would be T dot purchased at is equal to T1 dot min underscore purchased underscore at. I'll give a semicolon. I would request you to go through this SQL query in a detailed manner so that you understand it line by line. Let me just run it now. If I run it, okay, it has thrown me an error which says table SQL underscore IQ customer does not exist. The reason is my table name is customers. Alright, so let me run it once again. Okay, so there's one more error. It says unknown column purchases at. So we had made a spelling mistake here. It should be purchased at. Now let's try and run it. Alright, there you go. So for customer ID 101, the first purchase was made on 2nd of October 2018. Likewise, for customer ID 103, the first purchase was made on 5th of October. And similarly for customer ID 102, the first purchase was made on 5th of October again. Now moving to the 9th question. So here we have a weather table. We want to write an SQL query to find all the date IDs with higher temperature compared to its previous dates. So if you see, we have a date ID column. We have the date and the temperature. Using this table, I want to find those IDs with higher temperature compared to its previous dates. So if you look for date ID 1, the temperature is 32. For date ID 2, the temperature is 31. For date ID 3, the temperature is 30.8. Now if you clearly notice, for date ID 4, the temperature is 31.5, which is actually higher than the previous date ID, which is 30.8. Similarly, for date ID 5, the temperature is 33, which is again higher than the previous date, which is 31.5. Now if you look at the date values, they start from 10th of March till 15th of March 2020. Now to solve this query, we are going to use SQL joins again, and I'm going to use a function called to_days. Now MySQL to_days function returns the number of days between a given date and year 0. So let's go ahead and write this SQL query. Alright, so first let me select all the rows from the temperature table which we are going to use for this particular question. I'll run it. Alright, there's some error. Actually the name of the table is weather and not temperature, so I'll write weather. Let me run it. Okay, so here you can see these are all the rows present in the weather table, and as I explained, I want to return only the date ID 4 and this date ID which is 5. Now one thing I want to make it clear here, that this date ID should actually be 6, so there was a mistake while creating the table. So please consider this date ID as 6 and not 5. So I want to return date ID 4 and date ID 5. Alright, so let me go ahead and write my SQL query. So I'll write select. I'll write a dot date underscore id from weather as a, comma, I'll join weather as b, where a dot temperature is greater than b dot temperature, and I'll give my condition, and I'll use the function to underscore days and give my value a dot date underscore val is equal to, I'll use the function again, to underscore days, b dot date underscore val plus 1. Now I would like to know from our viewers, why have we used plus 1 in the where condition? So please put your comments in the chat section. Let me just run it. There you go. So here you can see my SQL query has returned the date ID 4 and 5, which means these are the date IDs where the temperature was higher compared to the previous dates. Alright. Now coming to the last question on this interesting session on SQL interview questions for data scientists. So there are two tables. One is the authors table and the other is the books table. I want to write an SQL query to find the second highest author who sold the most number of books. Now this is going to be my SQL query. Again, we are going to use joins on both tables author and books along with limit and offset operators. So let me show you how to do it. So first I'm going to join my author table and the book table. So I'll write select a dot author underscore name, comma, I'm going to find the sum of copies sold from the books table. So I am giving my alias name as b dot copies underscore sold, which is my table name. I'll give an alias as sum underscore sold from author as a, join books as b on, I'll write b dot book underscore name is equal to a dot book underscore name. Now I'm using book underscore name as my criteria because book underscore name is the common column to both the tables. Then I'll use a group by clause. I'll write group by a dot author name. Then again I'm going to use an order by clause. I'll write order by sum underscore sold, and I am going to order it in descending order, so I'll write DESC. I'll set my limit as 1 and offset as 1. If I run this, you will find that my SQL query has thrown an error. The reason is we have used a column called bull underscore name, so it should be book underscore name. There was an error here. Let me run it again. Okay, there was another small error. This should be sum underscore sold. Let's run it. There you go. So my SQL query has returned author 3 because author 3 sold the second highest number of books. Now let me just remove the last few lines in the script. Let me just run it now. If I run this, you can see author 1 sold the highest number of books, followed by author 3 who sold the second highest number of books, and then it was author 2 who sold the least number of books. So if I write limit 1 and offset 1, what this line of code will do is it will skip the first row and print the next row. So let's just run it. And you can see it has returned me the author who sold the second highest number of books. And with that, we have come to the end of this video tutorial on SQL interview questions. I hope you liked it. If you have any questions, then please feel to put it in the chat section or the comment section of the video. Thank you for watching and keep learning.